And we had a great chat, and I got to make amends for a lot of shit. And he was completely receptive, and it was like, it was such a relief. It was such a relief.
Was that something that had been bothering you all those years?
Oh yeah, of course. Because when I was on that thing and out of my frickin' tree and like blaming him for all this stuff, and then I was like, the further I got from it, I had so much more perspective on like, what did he really do to me? He built like this incredible environment, wrote a character, tailor-made, worked his fingers to the bone to keep it interesting, to keep it vibrant, and that's what he did to me.
Hello and welcome to My Hollywood Story. I'm Stacey Wilson Hunt. My guest today is Charlie Sheen, the Golden Globe-winning actor, the subject of Netflix's two-part documentary, aka Charlie Sheen, and the author of the 2025 memoir, The Book of Sheen. I first interviewed Charlie about a dozen years ago, shortly after his 2011 dismissal from 2.5 Men and the tabloid frenzy that followed. I found him then, as I did during our interview in front of an audience at Soho House, West Hollywood, to be funny, honest, and keenly self-aware when reflecting on his career and his much publicized personal struggles. Listen in as Charlie, who is now 8 years sober, shares intimate memories from an extraordinary childhood spent on movie sets with his father, the actor Martin Sheen. He also talks about how it felt when he didn't earn an Oscar nomination for his work in Best Picture winner Platoon. Charlie also shares the secret he revealed to his Spin City cast at his first table read for the series in the year 2000, and why he believes no one will ever have a Hollywood story quite like his ever again. This episode of My Hollywood Story was recorded live at Soho House, West Hollywood. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you think. Please welcome Charlie Sheen. So how does that feel, to feel so welcomed?
Not gonna lie. No, it feels amazing.
A lot of people love you, I have to say. When I told people you were my guest today, I had nothing but enthusiasm and love coming from all corners of communities and people who love your work but also root for you. So I just want to thank you for being here. I know it's been a long journey.
The journey, like the recent journey or the whole journey?
Kind of the whole thing. Your life is quite spectacular, and we're going to dive right into it. But before that, I want to congratulate you on a few things.
Okay.
The publication of your memoir, The Book of Sheen, which is excellent. Buy it for everyone in your life for Christmas. It's really, really good.
Thank you.
The premiere of your two-part Netflix documentary, aka Charlie Sheen, also excellent work.
Thank you.
And most importantly, 8 years of sobriety.
Thank you.
That feels worth celebrating.
Thank you.
So we're going to dive back into the beginning of your Hollywood story, Charlie, which begins in New York when you were born Carlos Irwin Estevez, the third of 4 children of actor Martin Sheen and his wife Janet, who I would say are pretty much angels on earth. These people you call your parents. Incredible people.
I would say angels is an understatement. Yes.
Incredible parents. And your siblings, of course, Emilio, Ramon, and Renee. And in reading your book, and we do get glimpses of this in the documentary, I'm reminded of just what an extraordinary childhood you had, growing up on the sets of your father's movies, including Mike Nichols' Catch-22, Terrence Malick's Badlands, and of course, Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. What was your earliest realization that your family wasn't like a normal family, where a dad didn't have a traditional job, and you had sort of a wildly experiential and unique childhood?
I think I noticed early on that he didn't keep like normal business hours, and every time I would see him away from home, he was wearing something different than he left the house in. And he's either making a movie or cheating on mom.
Right, he didn't have a suit and a briefcase when he's leaving the house.
No, But then there was another thing that I discovered a bit later on, post New York, maybe pre-Malibu, because there was that 1 year in LA before, which was 1969, and it was the Manson murders that got us out of West LA and thought we'd get just further from that chaos, right? And right around that time, and I don't think this is in the book. I thought Dad was going a little batty early on because he was always talking to himself, or what I thought was talking to himself.
But he was rehearsing.
He was rehearsing his dialogue, yeah. And then years later, when I ventured into television, which is a lot of dialogue every week and a very short time to learn it, I became the guy talking to myself,
That's not uncommon here in Los Angeles.
Right. Actors or otherwise, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And how did your parents help to create a semblance of normalcy for you and your siblings? Were they making sure you had tutors on set? Were they making sure that you felt like you were having a regular childhood, but that had sort of added bonuses too?
Yeah, no, there were tutors to a degree, because it was hard to get excited about or really see the value of staring at a textbook or trying to learn Italian when we could go to work and see Dad get machine gunned off of a train. It just it was kind of a no-brainer which one you captured and held our interest.
Of course, especially as a young boy who loved to make mischief, I assume.
Exactly, yes. But as far as, Dad implemented a thing early on where in all of his early film or television deals, he made sure that there was always travel accommodations for the whole gang, because my parents, Jesus, got married in like 1961, and have stayed that way.
That is so remarkable.
It's insane. I didn't make it 61 days, but
they set a very high bar. Very high bar.
Yeah, they did. But I think that Pop really saw the value of keeping the gang together. But also, then much later on for me, and I'm jumping way ahead, but I will come back to it, being a working actor with children, and truly understanding finally what Dad really, his job couldn't end just when he got back from work, because then it's the job of a father, and with a displaced, by choice, family that had that whole basket of needs in a different part of the world. So he kind of added another job to his job, but I think he always knew the job at home was the more important one.
And probably when you became a parent, you had even more respect for what he had done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So obviously much has been made about the experience of making Apocalypse Now. And you have said that it wasn't until you saw the wonderful documentary in 1991 called Hearts of Darkness that used Eleanor Coppola's footage from filming that you fully understood what your father had gone through making that film. And I'm curious, how did it feel to see him so vulnerable in such a state of emotional disarray while he was filming, but also he was your dad at the time? That must have been really hard to see.
Well, yeah, I as a child, on that day when that particular incident took place, which is documented and which is...
And share the incident in case people don't know what it is.
Oh, it's the opening scene of Apocalypse, and it was his 36th birthday, and so we had a plan to visit him on set and cut some cake on his lunch break.
This was on location in the Philippines.
This was in the Philippines during Apocalypse, yeah, and I was 10, and so I only for years I only had access to what I experienced in person that day, which was it wasn't Dad. It wasn't the dad that we always counted on to be the guy that we'd see on set at work doing his thing. And there was a disconnect. There was a possession. There's a thing I talk about in the book where we did sit down at this outdoor table, and there had been rumors swirling when we showed up that he'd been wandering the streets naked, like that morning. And I get that it's your birthday, but wrap a towel. What are we doing?
But also not unlike what his character is enduring at the beginning of the film, which is a complete psychotic break.
It is, yeah. And so, but there was one point where he was turned away from me, and when he turned back, he had a standard military issue K-bar knife grip between his teeth, and looked right at me, and I didn't know whether to laugh, whether to run, hide behind mom, grab the knife to defend myself. As a 10-year-old, that's a lot to process, yeah. And that's when mom was like, "This is a wrap on the birthday attempt," But then, so for years and years, when do you imagine, or when do you know that Hearts of Darkness was released?
It was the 91, I think.
91.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. Okay. So that's
quite a few years
16
after.
years. Yeah. And then to finally see it, and to finally see what was going on inside that, it was actually a courthouse that they turned into that motel, to see really the depth of where he went, and just that amount of pain. However, it is the greatest opening to any film in cinema history, period, the end. And the greatest opening to the greatest film ever made, in my opinion. And so it's kind of that thing, was it worth it? It was worth it for an audience. Was it worth it for him? He, and I'm not going to speak for him, I'm sure he's spoken about this in interviews and so forth, but he could only watch that once, what Eleanor captured, but once was all he needed to see it,
That cannot be easy, watching yourself in that state.
No.
So I'm curious, after these experiences on set with your family, how difficult was it for you to reacclimate to being a regular kid in LA? When you had to go to school and you're like, I have to listen to this teacher and do homework. After having had these adventures, I imagine that was not easy.
It was interesting. It was, I kind of wanted to explain a lot of the stuff that I'd experienced, that I'd seen, that I'd been through, that I was a part of, but it doesn't, you're in the middle of an English lesson. How do you work in, I don't care about this because, a week ago I had lunch with Marlon Brando. So go fuck yourself.
That would be serious name dropping in school, right?
Yeah, but it's, no, and it is, like, I've lived the life of name dropping, but because that's just the truth, and so, but the geography classes were interesting because they would be talking about places and I'd say, no, you're wrong. Well, how do you know? Well, I've been there. I was there last month. So that was kind of cool. But no, as far as, I always went to public school. I played baseball.
Well, I was just going to ask, when did baseball become one of your favorite things to do?
I first discovered it at 8, but then didn't wind up on a team until I was 11. Yeah, and
what did you enjoy about baseball specifically as a sport versus other sports?
It was as much of an individual sport as it is a team sport. Being able to excel on your own, but also having to rely on 8 other guys out there. And so, yeah, no, I immediately just was in tune to the poetry of baseball.
And did your parents talk to you about becoming an actor? Did they try to dissuade you because they know how hard it is, or did they allow, obviously you and Amelia were making your Super 8 movies,
Sure.
You were so entrenched in performing, even just at your house for fun. Were they cautiously trying to say, hey, you may want to go to college, you may want to pursue athleticism? What was their conversation like with you about that?
didn't really try to steer us in any direction, career-wise. I think they were convinced. I mean, Emilio took the plunge first, and so I was still in high school when he was out in the world making movies and making popular ones, you know. And so I started to, and it's talked about in the book that I was really close to it, but not a part of it, and that was really frustrating. So I started to kind of weigh, you know, what a baseball career and how long, or really what a long shot that was, versus pursuing something that I felt I just had a much better chance at some gainful employment, you know.
Well, you had more connection to it.
I did, yeah.
And tell me when Glennis Liberty entered your life.
Glennis was around when I was in high school. She was my first agent, as you know, and friend of my parents. She was an executive assistant for Robert Redford and Sidney Pollack, and so when I decided to become an actor, because you know the academic thing fell apart, the baseball thing fell apart. Basically, high school just said, "You need to leave. We're done. We're done with this. This experiment is over. It is a failure." It's a failure.
So college was not really in the cards at this point.
It absolutely not. But I presented it as though it might be when I went to my parents and said, "Hey, all right, here's what I'm proposing." And it was the first summer of freedom. You know, it was right after senior year, and I said, "Look, I'm gonna audition this first summer, and if it goes well, I'm gonna stay there, or I'm gonna stay in that lane. If it shits out, I will get my GED, go to a JC, community, whatever, and then I'll go study film, or I'll go study something valuable, you know, something where I
So it was a bit of a negotiation you proposed to them, that if you can try it, if it didn't work out, you would pursue school.
Correct. But I didn't really present it as they had any input. I mean, but they felt like they did. Sure. Yeah.
So that was good acting on your part. You made them feel included.
See, I passed my first audition, didn't I?
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
The term Nepo baby, I feel like needs to be retired. It's been overused more than 6, 7 at this point.
My gosh.
But I've spoken to Kate Hudson and other people who've grown up in the business, and it's interesting. Kate chose to use her birth father's name so she wouldn't be known as Goldie Hawn's daughter. There's an interesting psychology that goes on there. But what do you wish people better understood about how it feels to be the child of a famous person? I imagine it's exciting, but it's also, that's a lot of baggage to carry around. So what do you want to sort of address within that, quote, Nepo baby context?
Yeah, because we didn't have that term back then, back in the 80s, 90s, whatever. It feels dismissive. It feels reductive. It feels it feels kind of insulting. It's just putting a label on. It doesn't matter, like, you know, how many movies you've done or how much success you've had or whatever the hell you're doing. It's like, yeah, it's because of that connection, you know. And it's like, it's really not. If anything, early on, it presented as a bit of a detriment because there's an expectation, right? And that if, you know, because me using Sheen, obviously they're thinking of Pop when I walk in, or even before they agree to the meeting, and then maybe they're thinking, okay, all right, tough guy, Sheen Jr., let's see what you got. So they're probably already expecting something that I might not have been capable of delivering, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And by the way, nepotism exists in all walks of life, every business, certainly politics, very much so today.
Sure.
So this isn't a unique thing to Hollywood.
Sure.
But I agree with you. It feels very dismissive.
Like, does the son of an architect who, like, I don't know, designs a cafe in Santa Monica, is he a Nepo baby?
Apparently, according to the people who made this term up.
Okay.
But probably not as much of an onus for performance that actors have, I think, and the pressure.
Right.
So I'd love to talk about the greatest movie title of all time, Grizzly 2, Revenge.
Well, it's interesting. It's Revenge now, and at the time, it was Grizzly 2, The Predator.
Right. It has
Yes.
I have to say, this movie has really taken on a life of its own in the last few decades. It didn't actually get released until 2021. Is this true? For the first time, it was able to be seen via streaming after being filmed around 1982.
83, actually, yeah.
83, okay.
Wasn't it on VHS,
Yes.
somewhere in the late 90s?
It was somewhere in the late 90s, but then disappeared, and perhaps rightfully so, no offense to the filmmakers.
Right.
But for those who don't know what this film is about, I'll tell you the log line. All hell breaks loose when a giant grizzly, reacting to the slaughter of grizzlies by poachers, attacks at a rock concert in a national park. Co-starring Laura Dern and George Clooney. So George Clooney was actually on Kimmel recently and referenced his experience making this film.
Oh, he did? Okay.
He did,
That's
just a
pretty
few days
cool.
ago, in fact.
Okay.
And I wanted to know, did any of you actually earn a paycheck for this film? Because it feels like it was fraught from the beginning.
It was fraught, pretty much covers it. I made $2,000 a week for 3 weeks. Yeah.
It's there are worse ways to make money when you're a young person.
Absolutely. Get eaten by a bear, survive, get paid. I mean, what are we doing? But why?
It kind of set the precedent for your whole life, Charlie. You've been consumed by the bear, and yet you live.
And yet here I am. Why am I not mentioned in the description of the movie?
Maybe it's because they didn't want to spoil anything, because they wanted people to discover the film.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's just me trying to
That's
understand.
a good cover.
But I'm curious, something so silly as that movie, and it's experience nonetheless, right? You're still
Sure.
learning how to be on a set,
Sure.
working with colleagues, being professional. Did that job actually yield more auditions for you and more notice?
It did, because back then, because that was the first thing that I auditioned for, and so it was like a signal flare to the Hollywood casting community. Like this Sheen kid shows up, gets the gig. They suddenly got very curious about. Do you remember a gal named Barbara Clayman? Anybody?
I don't know the name.
Barbara Clayman? Anyone? No. Okay, I've just dated myself.
Who was Barbara?
She was a pretty well-known casting director and a casting agent before they were known as directors. Correct? That was like
That term is somewhat new.
yeah.
Director. Mm-hmm.
And salty vet, terrific lady, and just saw something. So she's the one that lit.
So she was your advocate.
She lit
in
the
that point.
fuse, yeah. So Grizzly 2, The Revenge, The Predator, both, whatever, did generate a curiosity. Yes, it put a different frequency in the air.
Okay, at least you have a credit at that point, right?
Yes, I still hadn't filmed it.
Right.
But the people I was meeting with then knew that there was something that I had already been approved.
Right.
Yes.
It was brewing.
It was brewing.
So Red Dawn, of course, directed by John Milius and co-written by John, who had worked on Apocalypse Now.
Correct.
So I rewatched this film recently, and of course it's about a group of teenagers who band together to defend their town and their country from invading Soviet forces, essentially World War III. This movie is very disturbing and very violent and very dark. He's smiling maniacally as I'm saying that. It is so disturbing that I feel like it wouldn't be made today. And I know there was a reboot in 2012.
There was a remake, yeah.
But
Wow.
it's so dark and no conclusion or happy ending and quite despondent in its themes. So much so that it was the first movie to be rated PG-13.
Correct.
Because it was
Yes.
so dark.
Yes.
So tell me about how it felt to be on the set with Leah Thompson, Jennifer Grey, Tommy Howell, Patrick Swayze, may he rest in peace. Did you sense that you were making this very violent, dark film, or did it just feel, hey, I'm working with a bunch of cool friends, peers, telling a cool story? How did it feel at the time?
The latter part of that at first, and then the former as we got deeper into it. And we were filming in one of the coldest places in the country from, I think it was late October all the way through the end of January and into the beginning of 1984. And
Is this
so
in New Mexico?
This is in Las Vegas, New
Las
Mexico.
Vegas.
The other Las Vegas, yeah. And Yeah, there were week-long stretches where the wind chill was 80 below, and actual temperature 0 or minus that. But it was an opportunity to just have this incredible bonding experience, you know, and like instantly with C. Thomas, with Darren Dalton, with Swayze, with Jennifer. Harry Dean Stanton is in that film. Ben Johnson's in that movie, right? Yeah.
It's a great cast.
Powers Booth.
Yes.
Powers Booth. Yeah.
He's excellent.
Yeah, and so, and you know, working with Milius.
Right.
And the thing about it is, when I got what I thought was the audition to go sit down with Milius, you know, I had the scene all worked out. I was like walked in there ready to deliver it. And he just started talking about Apocalypse, and he started talking about, he might have thrown in some Dirty Harry stuff, you know. I mean, just kind of an epic presentation. Him just
like for tone for the film.
Yeah, but him just sort of casually dropping that stuff, you know. And then we're sitting there, we're back and forth. There's no mention of an audition, nothing. And at the very end of it, he says, "So how do you feel about the role of Matt?" I said, "Well, I feel pretty good about it. And when do you want to?" And he's like, "So you'll do it?" And I'm like, "Well, of course I'll do it." So it was another one of those things. And then it felt...
Had he seen you in Grizzly 2 at this point?
There was nothing available from Grizzly 2 to be seen.
Just
you
the
know?
specter of Grizzly 2 floating in the universe.
Exactly. But it was a trip because holy shit, this guy now trusts me in this lead role, in an ensemble, of course, but with some pretty pivotal moments in the movie.
And I know Emilio had worked with Patrick on Outsiders. Did you know Patrick beforehand? And he always seemed to carry sort of this big brother paternal energy in some of these early films. Is that how it felt to work with him?
Instantly, yeah. In fact, when I was still in Budapest, having gotten the job in Red Dawn, they wanted two things. They wanted to sign me to a 3-picture deal at MGM before I'd filmed a frame with the Bear, a frame with Milius. I still hadn't officially been in front of a camera, and they're trying to lock me up for 3 films. They also wanted me, as soon as I got back from the Bear disaster, to do a screen test to play the older brother. And I knew there wasn't a chance that I was cut out for that. And so I, not overtly, but sucked just enough intentionally to make sure that wasn't going to happen.
Well, you probably saw the supporting role as better training and maybe what you were more ready for.
Absolutely, yeah. I felt like there'd be more opportunity to hide.
Right. Well, that was smart.
Yeah.
That was good thinking
but
on
as
your
far
part.
as the Big Brother thing, absolutely. And Emilio had worked with Darren, with Tommy, with Patrick, and so he kind of gave me the lay of the land with those 3.
We miss Patrick so much. What a loss.
He was lovely.
Special guy.
Terrific dude. Yeah.
And now I'd like to talk about another disturbing movie, The Boys Next Door, which came out in 1985. This is a movie I hadn't seen until recently. Directed by Penelope Spheris, who'd go on to make Wayne's World, of all movies.
Sure.
And it's about 2 recent high school grads who leave their small town for a weekend trip to LA and find themselves leaving a trail of dead bodies in their wake. And co-starred the British actor Max Caulfield, who had appeared in Grease 2. So I went back and read the New York Times review of this film, which came out in 1985.
Oh boy.
And Vincent Canby, one of the great reviewers, he liked it. But his reference was interesting. He said the film is, quote, as chilly, lean, and unsentimental as Badlands, your father's film.
Oh.
Which is really interesting comparison. And I read that your father was actually a little upset by the violence in The Boys Next Door. Was this something that he talked to you about, that he had seen the film and thought, this is a bridge too far? Was this something that you had heard at the time?
Yeah, but what bridge is he talking about? I mean, if you think about Badlands, I mean, he's just arbitrarily gunning people down. And he'd done Apocalypse, right?
Maybe his stomach had turned and he was sort of like, it was harder for him to absorb that kind of stuff on screen.
Interesting, perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But it's, I think I think that blow was softened a little bit by the fact that Max did most of the killing, and I was just kind of along for the ride. Yeah.
But what was it like to work with Penelope? Because I have to say, quite rare for a woman to make any movies at this time, but for a woman to helm a movie like this that's very dark, it's violent.
Sure.
And it just really, there was no marketplace for female directors at this time.
It felt great. I mean, she was so connected to the material. She had such an artistic flair about her. She spoke of movies with such passion, and she loved being on a set. I think the only film she'd done before that
was another small film.
It was like a punk rock sort of. Was it a documentary?
No, I think it was scripted, but she had shown an acumen for stories about young people.
Right.
Which is probably why she was hired to do Wayne's World.
Interesting.
Which captured a very different story.
For sure.
But I think she clearly had an acumen. She had a punk rock sensibility and clearly was not afraid to work with young actors and tell difficult stories.
Right.
This film is really quite good, The Boys Next Door.
Does it hold up?
It's very good. It's shocking in its own way.
Okay.
But very different from, I think, what a lot of 80s movies were a little on the fluffier side, kind of happy ending type films. But I want to talk about your father for a moment and his devout Catholicism, because I actually met him about 10 years ago at a Grace and Frankie Q&A that I hosted with him and the cast. And he was so kind and lovely. And upon leaving him, he said, "Bless you, my child," to me. He has such a priestly presence. So it made me wonder, what was your relationship like with religion growing up? Did he drag you kids to church? Did he let you figure this out on your own? What was his position on that?
Thank goodness for Mom. No, she would always remind him that she would say, "Martin, they have the right to choose their own God, however they want to interpret that." And so, to his credit, it always had a presence in our house, in our upbringing, but it was never it was never enforced. It wasn't like that's the rule of this arena, you know. It didn't. I mean, you know, we would go with him on holidays and that whole thing, but no, he just really established it as that was his journey. That was his journey. Because he went away from it a couple times, then he went back to it. And then after the heart attack on Apocalypse, he was like, "I'm going to stick around these parts."
Keep the rosaries close.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Did he give you a rosary when you?
He did not, but I would have graciously accepted if he'd offered.
Because he carries around like 50 of them, like in a bag. Hands them out like candy at Halloween, you know.
He has a wonderful presence. He's really a special guy.
But he insists that you hang it from your rearview mirror. And I'm like, "Dad, that is a safety hazard. I know that the Lord's involved, but still, I need to see pedestrians, you know, because those things they can be thick.
They can be thick,
They can
yes.
be thick.
If they're long, they can dangle a lot.
They can be weighty."
So I have to imagine your father's devoutness played into his reaction to you becoming a father and his support of you becoming a dad. What was his reaction when you found out you and your girlfriend were going to have a baby, and how did he express his support to you for this experience?
He was instantly as supportive as anybody could have possibly been. He was celebrating it more than we were. Because for us it was a bit of a shock. It was this great mystery, but he knew the lay of that land, you know, and so and he you know got to be a grandfather. I was 19.
So you were an adult-ish.
Didn't go that far.
But again, to have parents who are so supportive, it really must have been quite something. And Ferris Bueller's Day Off. For those of us who've seen the docuseries and have been obsessed with this movie for as long as we have, we got to hear the backstory of how you landed the role through your friend Jennifer Grey, and how you were late to set the day you were filming, which is probably my worst nightmare, anyone's worst nightmare.
Of course,
who works in this business. And in your book, you said something, not necessarily about this experience, but later in the book, you said, "High, sober, or both, I've always stressed the importance of punctuality." Which is a very funny way of putting it. But what did you learn from that experience about professionalism? Because John was quite kind to you, John Hughes, when you had this blunder.
He was terrific. Yeah. Jennifer beat me up pretty good about it. But no, as soon as I got to the set, 2 hours late, he took one look at me and said, "Oh, good, you're here. Let's get started." Which I thought was so professional, because it didn't matter to him what the delay was. There was to dig into that meant more wasted time. And I always respected that.
So I'd love to talk about Platoon now, one of the great movies of all time.
Oh, thank you.
Best Picture winner, written and directed, of course, by Oliver Stone, inspired by his own time in Vietnam. You play Chris Taylor, a new recruit caught in a battle of wills between two sergeants, one good and one evil. Co-starring Willem Dafoe, Tom Berenger, Johnny Depp, Forrest Whitaker, among many others. And you famously were not the first choice for this role. In fact, your brother Emilio was cast initially. And then Oliver considered John Cusack, Keanu Reeves, and Kyle MacLachlan. And I love Oliver, and I love his book, Chasing the Light. Have you read his memoir?
I have not, no.
It's excellent. And I love what he said about you. He said he had seen The Boys Next Door and thought you had the, quote, same puzzled gaze that he himself had had in Vietnam. And he also said that you, quote, projected an innocence that you clearly didn't possess.
Wow.
Which is very funny statement. I'm curious, was your family at all worried about you taking this on?
Deeply.
Based on what your father had experienced,
Yes.
what your family had experienced, being, again, entrenched in the Philippines, the training.
Sure.
What were their fears for you?
That it wasn't worth risking my life to create a film, regardless of what it's the content or the pedigree or any of it. And that's when I just decided it was it was a risk I was willing to take, because I had a sense of the landscape. I kind of knew.
Was Oliver clear with you about how hard this was going to be?
Yes and no, because to describe something until you're living that thing is usually completely different. And we knew it was going to be difficult. We didn't know it was going to be like that.
And tell me about Dale Dye.
Dale Dye, Captain Dale Dye. Yes. No, he was a trip. That dude plays for keeps.
And explain what role he played in your training.
The whole training camp was his brainchild. That he pitched that to Oliver. He like sought Oliver out and demanded a meeting with him and said, look, if you want to do this right, if you want to honor the troops that you serve with, that I serve with, you got to give me these guys for 3 weeks in the jungle.
Was this a new phenomenon to have actors go through such a rigorous prep? Like back in the day, they probably in World War II movies, those actors were not probably going through the same training.
Probably not. Right. Yeah, we done like the light version of it for Red Dawn, but that was like 3 hours. Working with the weaponry, working with maneuvering, break for lunch, maybe some chalk talk afterwards, and then we go back to the hotel. So it was nothing like what the captain was cooking up.
And what was he cooking up? What was the prescription that he wanted Oliver to give you guys to train?
He wanted us just to get as close as we could to feeling what it was like to exist with those kind of responsibilities in that climate, developing a camaraderie that literally is has life and death stakes attached. And I'll never claim that I know what it's like. Bullshit. It was a fucking movie, right? But I do, I think we got as close as we could just to kind of getting an essence of just, maybe what those guys felt, just climate-wise.
Very rough environment, climate-wise. And
yes.
Just the terrain, the rain, it's very difficult.
Yeah, bugs and snakes and all kinds of shit. But it, it wasn't like you could run to a payphone and call an agent or a taxi and dip out. It was you were there. He drove us like into the middle of nowhere, and in fatigues with gear and a bunch of shovels and said, dig your holes.
That
Which
really
we
sets
we
the stage.
lived in for 3 weeks. But had we not gone through that, I don't think the film would have had the grit, where you could almost smell it coming off the screen, And I don't think the vets would have responded to it in the way that they did unless Dale had shown up with.
Is Dale still with us? Is he still alive?
I believe I haven't heard otherwise.
Okay.
I haven't heard otherwise. Yeah, I'd love to reconnect with him because I'm sure he's gonna give me a ton of shit about my Platoon chapter. But come on, it's been 40 years, and I'm going from memory here. But I hope he's pleased with how he's portrayed and how he's presented and remembered.
Well, I think you did a great service to service members, but also just the notion that Oliver, who had served, the fact that he was telling his own story, it was very rare. Like, there's something about the way Oliver told this story that is just unparalleled, I think.
Cool. Thank you.
So Platoon was unique in the sense it was shot in order for the most part.
In perfect continuity.
In
yes.
perfect continuity, which
Yeah.
is almost unheard of.
Never happens.
How
Yeah.
did that impact your performance? Was it to the point where you didn't have to pretend to be exhausted because you were exhausted, because you had actually sequentially gone through what your character had gone through?
Correct. And we never had to remember what had just happened or how it was connected to the next moment. It was literally, we shot, page 35 and 6 the day before, and today's 7 and 8 or 9, and it gave us a chance to just kind of pace it in a way that that we could build it, I think, organically. And I've never had that experience prior
It's
or
very rare.
since. Yeah.
Because mostly we're blocking films based on locations and daylight, and there just really isn't the gift of being able to shoot in sequence.
Exactly, and I think the value of being in a jungle, it kind of anywhere you point the camera, it pretty much looks the same. I mean, let's face it. And the sets were pretty bare bones.
Right, a lot of practical locations.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the film would go on to win numerous Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director, deservedly so for Oliver. And Willem and Tom both were nominated for Supporting Actor, but you were not nominated. And I was wondering if you were disappointed by this or surprised.
I think it would have been too much at the time. In hindsight, I've kind of questioned it. When I've seen over the years certain performances that are celebrated at that level, and I'm like, really? Did we see the same movie? But whatever. No, good for them. Good for them.
There really isn't a lot of logic sometimes with this stuff.
No, but that's all right. I think it was a blessing that it didn't happen. I didn't understand that it there was a whole campaign behind it, that you really had to kind of get out there and kind of root for it and yourself, and that it felt.
And Tom and Willem were more well-known. They've been around longer,
exactly.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
But just a stunning achievement, and I'm curious what it was like to meet and work with Johnny Depp when you were both on the precipices of big careers.
I mean, he was terrific. He was lovely, just funny and smart. And
Smoked a lot of cigarettes, I imagine.
I've never seen anyone look sexier smoking a cigarette than Johnny Depp. I mean, mic drop with that. And as a result, I wanted to capture some of that and became a smoker. Yes.
So it's all Johnny's fault you became a
fault.
smoker?
Yeah. In fact, I mentioned in the book, should I ever need a new lung, I'll send Mr. Depp the bill. I smoked, I smoked 2 packs a day for 33 years.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, no, I wasn't playing. I wasn't
There
playing
was
around.
like gasps from the crowd. You guys know the other things he's done too, right? The smoking thing is actually low on the list.
Well, I did the math, which was pretty cool. Not cool, but it was just, I'm a Virgo, and I had to get to the bottom of it. And when I finally quit, cigarettes are 3 inches, right? Marlboro Reds, and there's 20 in a pack, so that's 5 feet, right? So that's 10 feet a day. Times 7 times 52, whatever. And so 33 came out to almost 25 miles when you line them up tip to butt. How about that? I smoked a marathon. Which is why I never fucking ran one. Thank you.
And you're clearly so good at math, you could have really gone on to college and done a lot with math, Charlie. I think you shortchanged yourself.
I learned all my math from sports gambling. Yes. Because you got to make decisions mid-game, you know? Yeah.
So now we move on to Wall Street, co-written and directed again by Oliver Stone. You play an impatient young stockbroker named Bud Fox who's willing to do anything to get to the top, co-starring Michael Douglas in his Oscar-winning role as Gordon Gekko. Daryl Hannah also appears in the film, and as does your father, Martin Sheen. So this was your first meaty role opposite your father. Tell me about working with him, preparing, rehearsing, and you're playing a father and son.
Right.
And the father character, in this case, he's a blue-collar guy. He works on airplanes. He's a union guy. And you're starting to see a chasm between him and his son. His
Right.
son is very money-driven. So tell me about creating that rapport with each other, and what was it like to actually be directed by Oliver and some of those heated moments you had?
Dad likes to rehearse. And not just with a structured rehearsal with Oliver and a script lady, continuity, right? Because he has a theater background. So he wants to be rehearsing like the entire time, right up until somebody calls action. And I tried to tell him that it's getting stale. It's getting stale. And I feel
You mean from doing it too much?
Yes, yeah. And he said, well, that's where it's on you to keep it fresh. And I'm like, but you're making it stale. This is your fault. So,
how was that received?
not well. But I think it was more, I think I being a lot younger, I had a tighter memory. I think it was more for him just wanting to show up and shine and not waste anybody's time. So
It's the ultimate pro.
Exactly.
And did
yeah.
he coach you in the moment, and were you resistant to him giving you advice, or what was that
No, I was
dynamic?
wide open. I
Okay.
was wide open to whatever he had to offer because, I mean, look who I'm sharing the stage with. No, I'd be a complete moron to reject any of it. But no, I thought that I thought we had some cool scenes together.
Scene in the elevator.
Scene in
is
the
really
elevator.
Great.
Yeah. No, he kind of pulled a fast one on me in that scene, where the famous delivery of size of his wallet, right? That was never in a rehearsal, not at home, not in the car, not on the set, but right there on camera, first time.
So he did have tricks up his sleeve
Yes,
that he
did.
hadn't shared.
Yes, he did.
He was keeping you on your toes.
But I'd been on the receiving end of a couple of wallet-esque outbursts as a child growing up, so it's kind of connected all of that too.
Right.
It's impossible to not bring your history to the screen when you have a history.
Of course, and you played beautifully together. And I know
Thank you.
your dynamic with Oliver on this film was very different than it was in Platoon. Tell me how your working relationship was different, and how was this almost a more stressful environment for you? Platoon was its own unique stress. In some ways, this was more difficult. You had more dialogue. The nuances of learning stockbroker language and vernacular, I know, was challenging. But tell me about working with Oliver and how he was different this time around.
It wasn't. It just didn't feel like what we'd shared, what we'd established, what we left behind in the jungle, and there was a thing on Platoon where he would, and he said this in interviews afterwards, that he'd be thinking of something mid-scene that he was going to ask me to do in the next take, but didn't have to because I would then wind up doing it in the take he was watching. And so there was we had this bond, we had this connection, we had this synergy that was just born from what from that level of task, of challenge. But I think he put a ton of pressure on himself with Wall Street, wanting to deliver the follow-up to Platoon.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, with as much pizzazz, and that's not up to him. That's up to the people. And so, the set, the Wall Street set felt it was a different frequency. It was a different energy, and there was a thing happening where there was going to be a director's strike, right? And so we were racing against the clock to not have to shut down. And so I think it was like the last 10 days of filming, we had to pack into like 5 days. So our turnarounds were like 4 hours. And so Dad showed up, I believe, like in the middle of that. And really gave everybody just a nice lift, that just a fresh voice in what felt like we were just at that point circling the drain,
Probably exhausted.
Completely, yeah.
So I'm curious what you think of Gordon Gekko's "Greed is Good" now, 40 years later. What does that phrase mean to you, and how it's, in my opinion, changed American life? It's kind of, unfortunately, part of everything that we do now. At least that's how it feels to me.
It's amazing that, films from the 80s predicting the future. I only connected to it sort of as it was presented in the movie, and how, just as a character, I was supposed to, worship that type of mindset, or that belief structure. And as a guy that living life, you can't argue or deny that I did support that greed is good at times. And I don't know. I don't think it aged well. Would you agree?
That's a fair assessment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
As convincing as Michael was in the role, it's a tricky proposition. So I'd like to talk about Major League, 1989. And I have to say, every person I spoke to who I told that I was having you on my show today, this is the movie they mentioned.
Okay.
Tell Charlie I love Major League. My son loves Major League. My friend in France knows all the words to Major League.
Oh, wow.
Is it strange to you that this is the movie that seems to have been this enduring cult classic out of all of your films?
I mean, I wouldn't call it strange, because
surprising.
It's a little surprising. We didn't really know what we were in the middle of creating, and it's become this multi-generational film experience. It's like a rite of passage that fathers hand down to their children. That this is the moment that you have to. You have to experience Major League. I think, and just, it's one of the few films that I've done that if I see it on television, I'll actually stop and just watch it because it's fun.
Because it's baseball, your favorite thing.
It's baseball. There's that part, but it's essentially a love story inside of a baseball movie. That's what it really comes down to. I mean, what's the second to last shot of the movie? It's her showing the ringless hand, right? And it's Jake's journey is
Well, I think
realized.
There are great female characters in the movie too, and I think that's what made women watch as well.
Interesting.
I think
that's
that
a really
speaks
good point.
to the female owner of the team.
Right.
I think that's actually what made it more inclusive,
right,
and have bigger fan base.
And if you look at Ted Lasso, and you look at the setup of that, you can see some Major League homage. I don't want to say plagiarism, but homage, right?
Bill Lawrence, creator of Ted Lasso, must have been a huge fan of Major League.
There you go.
And you play Ricky Vaughn, the Wild Thing. And I'd like to know more about this haircut that you had in the movie.
I mean, written into the script. Yeah, as if you could imagine, like what David Ward, how he would have to describe that on the page.
Like lightning in his hair or something?
Sort of. Like wedges. I couldn't imagine it until it was actually cut into my hair, and they did that thing where they spin the chair and you're holding up the thing, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, how about that? But then to see over the years, not just kids at Halloween, but like Major League Baseball players, pitchers, with that haircut,
That's incredible. And is it true that you used steroids to get ready for the movie?
I did.
Okay.
I did, yeah.
And how did that impact your performance, do you think?
Well, it impacted my athletic performance fantastically. The other stuff, maybe not so much. No, I could feel that you get a little bit more on edge with that shit. But I wasn't like, okay, done that. Now I'm going to blow off acting and become a competitive bodybuilder. No, what are we doing? No, I just knew that it was for a specific goal, and I just, I wanted to just add some heat on my fastball.
Now, was this something that was known to the filmmakers?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I imagine they would have probably said maybe skip the
They'd have
steroids.
recommended I not do that.
Right.
Yeah. But we didn't have the luxury of all the computer effects to enhance that stuff. So I wanted to give David something he could work with, and through a couple editing tricks, make it look.
And was he impressed with your pitching?
The first time he saw it, he was like, "Holy shit!" He was like, "Yes, I can make that look like 99 or 100 for sure." So, yay steroids.
For any kids who are listening, please forget that part. So I'd like to talk about working with Clint Eastwood on The Rookie in 1990. And based on what I read in your book and also in the docuseries, this was around the time you and Nick Cage started to have a lot of fun recreationally. And
It's one way to put it.
yes, I'm trying to paint you in the most positive light in this experience, Charlie.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You are
Thank you.
welcome. So I would say that around this time is when your extracurricular life was maybe seeping into your work. I think is the best way to phrase it.
That covers it. Yeah.
And in fact, Clint was the one who called the house the day of the intervention.
He was.
And
yeah.
he, in that wonderful Clint voice, said, "You've got this, just a minor speed bump. Go make me proud." How does it feel to have Clint Eastwood telling you to clean your shit up in that moment?
In that moment, you don't have a choice. I mean, it's Dirty Harry telling you to get it together. And as I describe in the book, that phone receiver handed over by Captain Willard. So that's what was in play.
Captain Willard being your father, of course.
In Apocalypse, yeah. So, yeah, but I took his advice, or followed his orders, however you want to look at it. But no, Clint's terrific, and I wish the film that we did together was better. I wish it just. The thing was, and I found out later, during The Rookie, he's already in prep for Unforgiven. And so I like to say that I got to Clint like one movie too early. Yeah, and so.
What struck you about the way he approaches his work?
I had heard about it, and until you're actually in the moment experiencing it, it's impossible to prepare for it, because working with a lot of directors that like to shoot a lot of film, do multiple takes, tons of coverage. I mean, really exhaust an actor. Clint was like, if the camera literally didn't like explode or the operator have a stroke, we were moving on. I mean, you would do maybe a safety take, but Clint would always say, what's the benefit of a safety take if you don't change the film roll? They're like, what? Let's do one for safety. Okay, change the roll. Because if there's a problem with some part of it, there's a problem with all of it, right? Usually speaking.
That is very logical, actually.
Yeah, but no, it was really cool to work at that pace. And him obviously being an actor as long and as successfully as he was, knowing what they go through, then as a director or doing both jobs simultaneously, he wasn't gonna do that to others.
Right. He also just doesn't have time to dwell on every moment.
He doesn't. No.
Right.
No.
So I'd like to talk about working with Chris Tucker on Money Talks
Okay.
in 1997. This was Brett Ratner's first film before the Rush Hour series. And I was struck by Chris speaking about you in the docuseries and thanking you for giving him top billing, which I thought was really rare for someone of your stature at the time.
Sure.
Tell me why that was important to you.
He was the star. I mean, it was his film, and I just felt like there was something about him. He had that thing. I just knew this dude is special, and I wanted him to be as celebrated and respected as possible. And I just, it was back at a time when you know, 2 or 3 leads in a film were arguing over like the position on a poster. Well, if you're up top, then I'm going to be a ½ inch higher over here. But then, hold on, our names aren't above our faces on the thing. Well, that doesn't matter because my contract says I can't be filmed from that side. It's like, fuck off. What are we doing, man? Just make the movie, you know? So I didn't want to engage in any of that. And I just knew that moving forward, it was going to do a lot more for him than it would have for me. And it just felt like the right thing to do, you know. And he delivered. I mean, that dude showed up.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, but I think moments like that really do stick out for people because it's hard to imagine that kind of magnanimity today. I think people are so protective over their image and their fame. I feel like that's a rare moment.
Yeah, I just it just made sense to me. You know, I try not to get bogged down in a lot of that other shit. You know, it just feels like a waste of energy.
Well, also at the time, you're probably dealing with other things in your personal life. And I'd like to talk about Rated X, a movie you made with your brother in 2000. And you wrote in your book something interesting, which was this was the first movie you had done totally sober, or at least up until that point or recent history. What scared you about being vulnerable in this newly sober state and working with Emilio on this film?
Well, I'd done some sober work, like, you know, Platoon, parts of Wall Street.
Parts of Wall Street.
40%.
Okay.
But when I say that, that's not me like being hammered on the set. Yeah.
But being clean during production, during the shoot.
Exactly, yeah. So I'd had experience with that. Major League was another one. So the only thing that Dad was worried about, Emilio was kind of worried about was, you know, this is my first job out of rehab. And then I'm playing a guy, you know, one of the Mitchell brothers, who's, you know, radically addicted to everything. And then a lot of those scenes, you know, were going to have to be played with, you know, drinking fake vodka, doing fake cocaine, all that shit. And I don't know, everybody was more worried about it than I was, because I'd gotten to a place leading up to that, and I think it's documented pretty nicely in the book. It's the whole section, Escape from L.A., and it's that
multi-chapters.
Yes, yeah, and the only chapters with titles. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, to you know, just what I survived, to then still be, you know, alive and then employable, have enough wits about me to go back to work. I saw it as an opportunity to just be free again, because Pop always said something interesting. He says, if you get drunk to play drunk, you can't make any choices. You have to play as drunk as you really are. He says, if you're playing drunk and you're not drunk, you can delicately
you actually can practice the craft.
To make adjustments.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I did it both ways, and and he's not wrong. He's not wrong, but that's how we learn, right?
Yes, that is how we learn. And now we come to a show that I loved, and you spent 2 seasons on Spin City from 2000 to 2002. Created by Gary David Goldberg, who had, of course, created Family Ties. And Michael J. Fox stepped away from the series in 2000 due to his health struggles with Parkinson's. And at this point, you had only appeared in one multi-cam show, which was Friends.
Correct.
You played Phoebe's boyfriend.
I did.
And you both get chicken pox and can't have sex, which is a very funny episode.
That was a terrifying experience, by the way.
Was it? In what way?
Yeah. Well, I'd never done theater. I'd never been in front of an audience. You know, my audience
was
always...
your first experience in front of an audience?
Well, I mean, there was a couple summer camps putting on like a stupid magic show. It was terrifying because my only audience up to then had been the crew. And, you know, a week in, you're very comfortable with you know, that temporary family that you're working with, you know?
Of course. And you had shot a pilot with Gary David Goldberg, but that hadn't gone. But you knew each other from that before he offered you this role.
Correct. And the Friends cameo or guest starring was before Sugar Hill.
Oh, I see.
That was that pilot, yeah.
Right. So something I didn't know about you before reading the book was your struggles with stuttering. And you have said that you had used alcohol to sort of soften the edges of stuttering.
Yeah.
And you had to, at this point, sober, tell Gary and the cast, I may need some help here.
Sure.
Before the table read. Tell me about revealing that to Gary, and how were you received when you shared that news?
It was it was a much bigger monster in my head than it was when it was just presented as this glitch that I've been dealing with most of my life. But it's also the kind of thing, like once people know, there's not as much pressure to hide it. And actually, because of that, because of just a more relaxed state of mind behind it, it doesn't show up as much.
You don't have as much anxiety.
Exactly, yeah. And for some reason, the table read was death for me. And just...
You can't hide. You're all there at the table.
You can't hide.
Right.
Yeah. And it's even worse when everybody's looking at the same script and they know the word you're trying to say. It's like anyone just fucking say it. Just say it, and then we can get past it, you know? So it was this thing I just had to come to grips with. And then after that, I just would tell people ahead of time, hey, there's this thing, and it's going to happen like in the worst possible place where it could, but then it would never show up on a show night. It was never there. I think I mentioned in the book, I hope revealing that serves as, how did I describe it, as a clarion call to the next job that I'm going to take on.
I think people have become more open about the challenges.
Right.
People talking about dyslexia. I interview so many actors who have the dyslexia.
Interesting.
Who had to hide it for years, secretly memorizing things without being able to read. So I think this kind of stuff, at least from my perspective, has become much more welcoming and welcomed.
Okay, good to know.
No, I think it's great, and thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And you would go on to win a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy Series in 2002, which I think is one of your first and only potential major awards.
That was it.
Unless I'm missing any. So
Yep.
What did it feel to be on this network show, a successful show, in this room filled with luminaries, and be on stage and be celebrated that way?
It felt amazing. I mean, I can't lie. It wasn't like, oh shucks, I don't deserve this. Fuck that. No, it was a really I remember every moment of it, which is a trip.
A lot of people say, oh, it's all a blur.
Yeah, usually you black out, right? I think I'd banked enough blackouts by then to actually be in the moment for a
thought
change.
You'd mix it up and be present.
Yes,
right.
Yeah. I think I had a line from the podium where I said, well, this is feels like a sober acid trip. I think I said that, right? No, it felt like a really cool moment of, I don't know, validation maybe, because there were so many doubters. First of all, going in to do sitcom television, replacing Michael Fox, everybody's favorite
That's a tall
dude.
order.
I mean, Jesus, what was I thinking, right?
Right.
So to be celebrated like that felt like I could finally exhale, you know?
And unfortunately, the show was canceled a few months after you won that award.
They were so excited by my award.
Yes.
They were like, we're done with you.
Hey, at least you still got the award. But how did it feel to kind of feel like you're on a roll and then to sort of have that rug pulled out? That must have felt disappointing.
It was awful. It was awful, but I knew it was coming. And I was the only guy in the mix talking about it. There was this big beef going on between Katzenberg and Eisner, right? And I think Jeffrey just beat him up pretty good in a giant settlement, right? And so Eisner's payback was to
This is Michael Eisner.
Yeah, was to shit can our show and not put another dollar in that dude's pocket. And I said, guys, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, I'm not trying to be paranoid, but I think this is something worth paying attention to. And they're like, you just won the award. There's not a chance. we're already going to shake them down for season 3. You're going to get what you deserve. I'm like, no, I think Jeffrey is. So yeah, and that's kind of what happened.
It was very prescient on your part to say that.
Thank you.
And now we come to 2.5 Men on CBS, created by Chuck Lorre.
He'd been working with women for years.
Brett Butler among them.
Right, and Roseanne, right? Dharma and Greg, right? So he said he'd always wanted to do a show about men, and especially a very dysfunctional family of men, and that's how he laid it out.
And the show became an instant hit, and your rapport with John Cryer was unmatched.
Thank
and
you.
You and John had worked on Hot Shots.
We had, yeah.
But did you know each other well in the 80s, like in this
just
crazy
from
time?
Audition rooms, and just from like this one moment in time where everybody hated him, playfully hated him, because he got a role that everyone wanted.
Which one?
No Small Affair. Yeah, maybe not a great film, but at the time that was the script in town, and they were seeing everyone. And then they
People
were
were jealous.
Oh, insanely jealous. Yeah, but whatever.
But you guys had a good relationship, and you enjoyed each other's company, and when you were working together, you had a good rapport.
We did, absolutely. Yeah, no, I've always liked John, and in that show, he was the perfect foil. He was a dream co-star. When I didn't feel like I could find my way in certain things, John was always there to lend a hand or just kind of, because he had a lot more experience in sitcom television.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, and
theater and film and
all of it. Yeah. So he was, even if some of his confidence was manufactured or feigned or whatever, it was still there for me to latch onto.
Right. Now, as things got dicey for you in 2011 and moving forward.
Dicey. Wow.
Again, painting you with utmost respect today,
Would
Charlie.
we describe the Hindenburg as dicey?
Was he someone you could talk to and confide in and say, hey, you've gone through 2 divorces, you're managing children, like this was a very difficult time. Was he someone you could confide in and someone you could trust?
Yeah, I'm sure he was, but I wasn't in a brain space to seek. I wasn't really looking for that. No, I'm sure he would have been available for anything that I needed, but I chose to just cave it up,
And kind of be isolated.
Pretty much,
No.
yeah.
And of course, you were let go from the show in 2011, and this is well documented, obviously. When you think back to this period now, what emotions most come up for you when you think about everything that you went through that year?
Regret, and regret is useless, but I think regret can be, I don't know, it can be educational. I think it can be just a reminder. I shouldn't have taken everything so personally. We're making a sitcom. The second, the com stands for comedy. I could have just laughed so much of it off. But
do you think because you had risen to such a level, you were the highest paid man in TV, you had a lot riding on this, you had achieved a very high level of success?
Sure.
Is that why it was harder to separate yourself from what was going on?
I think so. And I was never the one making a big deal about any of the business stuff connected to that. I mean, was it a cool thing to achieve? Sure. But it wasn't like, I'm going to be in the Guinness Book of Records, right? I mean, come on. But it did add a lot of pressure that I put on myself, when in fact all I had to do was just keep doing exactly what I'd been doing,
Which was clearly working for you.
Thank you. But no, I didn't feel like the only safe place I felt was in the car on the way to work, because the home life had gone to shit. There was a lot of stuff at the job that I brought, and some other shit that is not even worth getting into. But yeah, so I couldn't. I just couldn't find a place to just kind of gather my bearings, you know?
Difficult time for sure.
Right, but not an impossible time.
Right.
And then,
if you could do it differently, would you have asked for help and therapy and been more honest with the people around you? Like, I'm in a crisis.
I would have done that. I would have also, I'm going to get yelled at for saying this, I would have also recommended that AA stay where it belongs and not have such a overwhelming presence on our set. That was part of it. And so, yeah, without getting into too much detail because of the anonymous part of that thing, I would have addressed that with a lot more courage and not just people-pleased my way through it, you know?
Valuable lessons learned,
Yes.
of course. So you would return to multicam comedy and anger management on FX in 2012?
And was in no condition to go back to work.
I was going to ask, did it feel too soon?
Way too soon, like a decade too soon.
Why do you think you said yes?
Because I wanted to prove to the guys across town that, I was back together and I was hireable and they made a big mistake, and those are the wrong motivations to go.
Spite is not a good motivation.
It's not a good motivator, no.
But the series
No.
premiere, I have to say, made history. 5.74 million viewers tuned in, which is the highest sitcom premiere in cable history. This is on FX.
That's pretty good.
So at least you have that, Charlie. Highest watched basic cable premiere of all time.
I'm learning some stuff today. This is pretty good.
How did you move on from, and the show only lasted 2 seasons. I personally like the show. You played a baseball player turned therapist,
yeah.
starring Selma Blair, whom I adore. How did the disappointment of this show not lasting more than 2 seasons impact you? Or do you feel like you kind of gave it a nice run?
I think we gave it a nice run, and we were, we set out to complete what's known as the 1090, and so it's essentially a 10 episode pilot, and the combined, the average number from those 10, if it hits a certain thing, then they activate the other 90. And it was a formula that had been hugely successful. I think with South Park. I could be completely wrong. That's not the example, but I think it might be. And so they thought, let's apply this to a sitcom. So we didn't have an audience. So it was about banking. Once we got the order of the 90, it was about banking them in the quickest time possible,
which was probably really tiring,
exhausting, and not conducive to producing the best quality of work.
Bruce Helford was a great guy.
Love him and his whole staff, all the guys. The cast was terrific. The crew was amazing. But the schedule, I don't recommend it to anyone. We were averaging 2 shows a week, and sometimes they'd add a third or the beginning of a third, and then finished that one the next week, and it was an uphill climb, and I kind of lost interest about episode 18 and had a few to go, and that was bad, and so wasn't showing up in the best shape, didn't give them the best me, but there wasn't really anything left to give them. Because I was still kind of, I was still reeling from everything that had happened.
This is only a year later.
It is only a year later.
I mean, that's not a long time to recover and heal.
No,
right.
It wasn't.
So you have said that you quit drinking December 12th, 2017.
Correct.
Okay, congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And roughly 6 years later, you would appear in the pilot episode of a very funny, now departed comedy on HBO Max called Bookie.
Sure.
Starring Sebastian Maniscalco and directed by none other than Chuck Lorre.
Mr. Chuck Lorre, yeah.
In which you played yourself a very funny version of
Thank
yourself.
Thank you.
So I have to wonder, how did it feel to reunite with Chuck, to be working together? Was there a state of forgiveness? What What did you talk about that day outside of the work? What did you share with each other?
There was a phone call a couple months before we actually got on set together, and it was the phone call that I had been wanting to have for a very long time, and he reached out. I actually wrote him a letter. I'd been sober for a couple of years, and I wrote him this letter, and I sent it to an address where I thought he was still living, and never heard.
So old-fashioned of you to send a letter.
Well, I just wanted that to kind of open the door, because I could say things in a way on the paper I probably couldn't if I just went and knocked, and so I was hoping that would help us, begin the reconnection or the healing or whatever the hell it is, and so he, on that phone call, said he never got the letter. Yeah, and so, but
So he reached out independently, not knowing you had written them.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And we had a great chat, and I got to make amends for a lot of shit, and he was completely receptive, and it was like, it was such a relief. It was such a relief.
Was that something that had been bothering you all those years?
Oh yeah, of course. Because when I was on that thing and out of my frickin' tree and like blaming him for all this stuff, and then I was like, the further I got from it, I had so much more perspective on like, what did he really do to me? He built like this incredible environment, wrote a character, tailor-made, worked his fingers to the bone to keep it interesting, to keep it vibrant, and that's what he did to me.
But you have a disease.
Shame on him.
You don't have the ability in that moment of crisis to see that. That's the tenet of being sick.
Yes, yeah. I don't subscribe to the disease model per se, but there are things about in the throes of things that, of course, are factual. And so, it's. I was so nervous about he and I working together again, And then he invited me to the table read of the pilot, and it was like 10 days from the invite to D-Day, and you can imagine what I was going through in those 10 days. Wow. And I showed up and did it, and everybody thought it was great or fine or both. I don't know. And
so you built it up. You were maybe more anxious than you needed to.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is a disaster. He's gonna, it's just this is the final moment. This is where it's all gonna come crashing down again. But no, it went swimmingly, and then on set with him, I'm writing all these stories about the things he's for sure gonna be thinking. I do that stuff. And then it was just, it felt like it did back when, and it was really refreshing, and we had a lot. We laughed. We agreed on just everything. We were back in a high stakes creative environment, doing really good work, and that was so important, just to get through that, and or to have that opportunity again.
He's a very compassionate person.
He can be, yes. Yeah.
In that moment, he was.
Yes, indeed.
He's tough too. He's
of course he is.
Very hugely successful, smart, hardworking guy. Absolutely. And now I'd like to talk about the docuseries on Netflix, aka Charlie Sheen.
It's pretty cool. It's really, I think it's a very smart title, just based on my real name, and just based on it immediately conveys just a historical connection to the birth name and what it became differently, and I mean, what else could we have called it?
I don't know. It's a good question, right?
Yeah, and such credit to Andrew Renzi, our esteemed director.
And was he hired for this job? Did you seek him out? What was his partnership like?
He reached out, and we had a meeting, and I peppered him with questions, about why and how is it going to be different from some of the others, and what's his plan, and I could tell that he was there for all the right reasons. I just felt that I was going to be in really capable and compassionate hands. That's how I felt.
And you seemed very safe, like you felt safe.
I did, because he and I spent a year together planning this thing and the archival stuff and all the research, and it isn't like you just say yes and then you show up on the set.
Course.
No, and it was during that year that we developed a trust, you know?
Right.
And he would say, hey man, you know, I've done as deep a dive on your life as anybody probably has ever, and there's, you know, some of this stuff over here. Are you cool that you finally get a chance to talk about that stuff? And I was like, let's do that.
We've come so far, we may as well.
Right.
So for me, watching the show, the most shocking and sad moment, in my opinion, has nothing to do with revelations about drugs or sex. There's a scene where we see behind the scenes footage of you and Todd Phillips, the director, and others, as they are encouraging you to take essentially your crisis on the road. I found this to be so sad and upsetting. And it reminded me of a line I'd read in your book, which you were speaking of meetings in the 90s. You said, how the fuck did they not see the state of mind I was in? It felt like I was strapped to a conveyor belt, being hand cranked by junk peddlers who stood in line to vulture the last scraps of my withered carcass. Shame on all of you.
It's a pretty good line, right?
It's a very good line.
Thank you.
I find the precariousness of the situation you were in at the time and the fact that they suggested that you take this on the road, it feels very disgusting to me. And I'm wondering how you feel about that now, and have you forgiven those people for this very bad idea?
Yes. And Todd was there for a specific reason. He was doing, I don't know if he was in the middle of it or he was at it, he was doing Hangover 2. And so he was there to see if I would do a cameo, like in the end credit scene. Is it in the movie? Did they cut it? They fucking cut it, right? Well, no.
I saw that movie a long time ago.
It was Warner Brothers, and I think they made him cut it. Maybe it's in the director's cut. Yeah. Maybe he'll just send me the footage. So no, Todd was nowhere near any of that thing.
But for the other people who took you on the road, and these performances were fun at first and of course flamed out and were disappointing, it just feels like someone in the throes of just despair and taking advantage of them. It just really upset me.
Yeah, it upset me too. Yeah, that's the last thing that should have happened. And then getting calls, you know, I'm not a namer, but, you know, people in my life, like, being so excited that the Fox Theater in Detroit sold out in 14 minutes, you know? And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I don't have an act. And it was 21 cities in 32 days with no act. And luckily, I'm friends with Simon Rex. Do you know Simon? Terrific guy, right? And so the show is in the toilet. We're getting booed off stage. And Simon just reminded me of this recently, or it would have been in the book, that he said to me, hey man, this thing feels really flat and the people are not here they're just here to heckle and you know, witness the train wreck. He says, I'm friends with a dude named Jeff Ross. Do you know who he is? I'm like, no idea. And he's like, okay. And he gives me the backstory and he says, I think if Live Nation pays him, Jeff could fly in and at least make part of this entertaining or
he's a great stand-up,
salvageable. And Jeff was like, sure, why not? I think Jeff just wanted to see the mess in person, right?
That sounds like Jeff. He likes to. He was at the roast, of course, the Comedy Central roast, which we enjoyed as well. But looking back on that, you do acknowledge like that was poor judgment on others' parts and probably not good.
Absolutely. But I did have the power to say no. And I get that I didn't have all my faculties to harness that power. However, because I think one of the themes in my book is that it all comes down to choices, that it's all about choices. And especially a lot of the shit I've been through, I can usually trace it back. As bad as somebody wronged me or this person did that or this cost that because of a thing, there's usually a moment in there in the early part of the story, something I agreed to. And so that's why I really focused, especially in the doc, in the book, that this is not a tale of woe, and there's that I'm not a victim because of anything that I've been through, and I'm not going to be like, I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. That's not the tone I'm going for. Just that I don't believe that. I don't think my story could be told properly from that point of view.
You come from a place of personal responsibility.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
I like
See,
that.
I could have said that in like 4 words. 4 fucking words.
But your way was wonderful too.
Thank you.
So in closing, I ask all my guests a couple questions. The first one is, what do you hope people take away from your Hollywood story? And what have you learned about yourself in sharing it?
The second part of the question, I shared it. This will come out bad.
Take your time.
Well, I shared it twice before here, but it was lovely to share it with you.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you. No, you went from like 1990, and I thought, fuck, man, I'm gonna hit traffic. And you went to 97, and I was like, okay, all right.
And I even skipped some stuff along the way too.
Yeah, you did. And so, no, it's always going to be different. It's going to be a new experience, sharing it, and today was exactly that. And with all of you, lovely and amazing people. So, thank you for your patience.
And what do you hope people take away?
I hope people take from it that. At the risk of sounding a little self-aggrandizing, I don't think there's going to be another Hollywood story like mine, perhaps in our lifetime. And that sounds arrogant and it sounds boisterous, but if you think about the progress, I think we can call it progress, that I think we've made as a people in some ways, and as a business, in less ways, but some ways, that there's too much, there's guardrails, this couldn't happen again because of how the talent is, I don't want to say coddled, but is protected. And there's a specialty now for every crisis. There's a specialty for every pathology. And so, so I think, I hope people take away that, yeah, it's one of the craziest ones. It's one of the most entertaining things, and we're so grateful that the dude that lived it is still alive, so we can hear the story from him personally today. I think that's pretty cool. Thank you.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
That's my favorite answer so far that I've ever had
Oh, right
to that
on.
question.
Thank you.
So in closing, I want to read something that really, I think, speaks to who you are, but also is very reflective of this wonderful moment in Platoon. It's when your character is being flown to safety out of Vietnam, and we hear his voiceover. And he says, "Those of us who did make it have an obligation to build again, to teach others what we know, and to try with what's left of our lives to find the good and meaning." And I feel like that is very exemplary of who you are today. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming, everyone. Really appreciate it. Thank you. My Hollywood Story is a production of Hippolyta Films and Entertainment. The series is written, produced, and hosted by me, Stacey Wilson Hunt. Executive producers for Hippolyta are Sonia Slutsky and Wendy Green. Series producers also include Daryl Young and Janet Grayson. Our camera operator, sound mixer, and editor is Ramiro Cantu. Original music for My Hollywood Story is by Madi Gabriel and Jenny Carr of Moon and Star. Our logo design was created by Brad Mitchell.
And I would like to give a very special thanks to Soho House West Hollywood for being the official new home of our show. We couldn't do it without you. This episode of My Hollywood Story was recorded live at Soho House West Hollywood. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and let us know what you think.